Hey guys, this is Mike Echols with your next lesson on risk management, risk assessments. So I thought today in lesson 2 that I would talk about things that actually make it easier for you to understand risk and how it connects before we get into cybersecurity and risk management for cybersecurity. So one of the things that most people are very aware of is the risk of financial loss. We all deal with it on a daily basis. We do things that lower our risk, like putting our money into a bank that's FDIC approved. So risk management is a systematic process of managing organizational risk exposure. And we do this to achieve objectives in a manner consistent with public interest, human safety, environmental factors, and the law. So business risks are the possibility of business loss or failures. There are 3 types of business risk: economic, natural, and human. So economic risk occurs from changes in the overall business condition. These risks include things like the amount of competition, right? If you move onto a street and you open a restaurant and there are 10 other restaurants there, then you might have a problem getting the amount of customers you need to be solvent. But in the same respect, if you open a restaurant and you're the only one on the block, but there are 5 other facilities that have potential restaurant licenses, that's also a business risk. And you should be aware of those things. The next thing is changes in customer lifestyle. Let's take that same example of a restaurant, right? If you are making fatty fast foods, but in your particular county, the fastest growing thing is gluten-free and low-fat foods, and the biggest restaurants are those restaurants that are providing those foods for healthy lifestyle. And the news channel continuously talks about those restaurants. You should be aware of that. That is a business risk, right? So those are the economic. Now, when we talk about natural, we should think about things like where you're located. If you live in or you establish a business in the California hills where there have been mudslides for years, that's a business risk. Or if you provide services in an area where you need to develop a infrastructure, and it's on the plains where there are tornadoes every year, that's a business risk, right? Also, when it comes to natural disasters, if you are in a location that has earthquakes on a regular basis, but your facility is not up to earthquake code, that is an issue. And for all of these things that I've mentioned, there are ways to avoid risk, mitigate risk, transfer risk, and to accept the risk if you choose to. So there's also human risk, right? There's a risk of theft, non-payment of accounts, bad checks, employee negligence, employee incompetence, employee abuse, and litigation. You may have frivolous lawsuits against you. All of these things are risks to your business. And they're things that we're all fairly familiar with. We've either done these things or we know someone who's gone through these things. So cursory perspective, what we typically do is a SWOT analysis. When we're thinking about risk, we can sit and structure on a piece of paper. What are the strengths? What do you do well? What are the advantages of whatever the perspective or the technique that I'm using provide me? Weaknesses. What are the weaknesses? Lack of resources. What are these things that can happen to me? Opportunities. How can I reduce this risk? How can I take advantage of this risk? And then the threats. These are beyond your control. It could be changes in government, rules. It could be economic downturn, bad publicity. And so compared to when you do cybersecurity risk, where you do a risk assessment, if you're just talking about that restaurant that we're looking at, this is the way we would kind of come to some assessment of our general risk. Thank you for joining me today. And in lesson 3, we'll talk about how risk applies in a cybersecurity environment. Hope you learned something, and I will talk to you soon. Thank you.